Welcome to Hollywood Secrets. In this episode, we're diving into the terrifying world of 1940s horror cinema. While the decade is often overshadowed by the classic monster movies of the 1930s, the 1940s brought its own share of chilling tales that continue to haunt audiences. These films laid the groundwork for modern horror with their innovative storytelling, eerie atmospheres, and unforgettable characters. So, let's explore the top 10 most terrifying horror movies of the 1940s. The Wolf Man, 1941. Directed by George Wagner, this Universal classic stars Lon Chaney Jr. as Larry Talbot, who becomes cursed as the titular Wolf Man. After returning to his ancestral home in Wales, Larry Talbot is bitten by a werewolf and becomes cursed to transform into a werewolf during a full moon. Struggling with his dual nature, Talbot seeks a way to break the curse, only to face tragic consequences. The Wolf Man is one of the most iconic horror films of the 1940s, introducing the enduring legend of the werewolf to popular culture. The film's makeup, designed by Jack Pierce, and Chaney Jr.'s sympathetic portrayal of Talbot, made this a cornerstone of Universal's horror legacy. The film's silver bullet lore became a staple in werewolf mythology, influencing countless other stories. Cat People, 1942. Directed by Jacques Tourneur, this psychological horror film stars Simone Simon as Irina, a woman who fears she will transform into a panther if aroused. Irina Dubrovna, a Serbian immigrant in New York, believes she is descended from a race of people who transform into panthers when sexually aroused or angered. As she falls in love and marries, her fears intensify, leading to a series of mysterious and terrifying events. Cat People is celebrated for its subtle, suggestive horror, relying on atmosphere and shadows to create tension rather than explicit scares. Producer Val Lewton's approach to horror in this film influenced the genre's development, emphasizing psychological fear over monsters. The film's Lewton bus scene, where a sudden sound startles the audience, became a textbook example of building suspense in cinema. I Walked with a Zombie, 1943. Another collaboration between director Jacques Tourneur and producer Val Lewton, this film blends horror with elements of the zombie genre and Caribbean folklore. The film follows a Canadian nurse who travels to the Caribbean to care for a plantation owner's wife, who is in a mysterious catatonic state. As the nurse uncovers the island's dark secrets, she suspects the wife may be a victim of voodoo and walks among the living dead. I Walked with a Zombie is a haunting and atmospheric film that redefines the zombie genre by focusing on mood and psychological horror rather than gore. Its dreamlike narrative and use of Caribbean settings give it a unique place in horror cinema. The film is loosely based on Charlotte Bronte's novel Jane Eyre, reimagined within a horror context. The Uninvited, 1944. Directed by Lewis Allen, this supernatural horror film stars Ray Milland, Ruth Hussey, and Gail Russell. It was one of the first Hollywood films to portray ghosts seriously. Siblings Roderick and Pamela Fitzgerald purchase a seaside house in England, only to discover it is haunted by a restless spirit. As they investigate, they uncover a tragic tale of love and loss that lingers in the house's dark corners. The Uninvited is praised for its sophisticated take on the ghost story, using atmosphere, sound, and shadow to create a genuinely eerie experience. The film's influence can be seen in later haunted house movies that treat supernatural elements with similar respect. The film's special effects were groundbreaking for the time, particularly the ghostly apparitions. The Body Snatcher, 1945. Directed by Robert Wise and produced by Val Lewton, this film stars Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi. It is based on the short story by Robert Louis Stevenson. The film is set in 19th-century Edinburgh, where a medical student and his mentor resort to grave robbing to procure bodies for their studies. As they become entangled with a sinister cab driver, Karloff, they realize that the bodies are not always from freshly dug graves, but from living victims. The Body Snatcher is lauded for its chilling atmosphere and Karloff's menacing performance. The film explores themes of morality and the lengths to which people will go in the name of science, making it a disturbing yet thought-provoking horror movie. This was the last time Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi appeared together on screen, marking the end of an era in horror cinema. Dead of Night, 1945. Directed by Alberto Cavalcanti, Charles Crichton, Basil Dearden, and Robert Hamer, this British anthology horror film features a series of chilling stories linked by a framing narrative. The film's central story follows an architect who visits a country house and experiences a sense of déjà vu. As he shares his eerie feeling with the other guests, they each recount a strange, supernatural tale. The stories range from haunted mirrors to ventriloquist dummies with minds of their own. Dead of Night is one of the most influential horror anthologies ever made, with each story contributing to its overall sense of dread. The ventriloquist dummy segment, in particular, has inspired countless horror films and TV shows, including The Twilight Zone. The film's cyclical narrative structure was innovative for its time, creating a sense of inescapable terror. Isle of the Dead, 1945. Another Val Lewton production, directed by Mark Robson, this horror film stars Boris Karloff and explores the theme of plague and paranoia. Set during the Balkan Wars, the film follows General Nicholas Ferites, Karloff, who quarantines a group of people on a Greek island to prevent the spread of a deadly plague. As fear and superstition take hold, the group becomes convinced that one among them is a Vrikolakas, a vampire-like creature from Greek folklore. Isle of the Dead is known for its claustrophobic atmosphere and exploration of fear, both of disease and the supernatural. Karloff's performance adds a layer of gravitas to the film, making it a standout in Lewton's horror oeuvre. The film's exploration of the Vrikolakas legend introduced many Western audiences to Greek folklore and mythology. The Spiral Staircase, 1946. Directed by Robert Siodmak, this psychological horror film stars Dorothy Maguire, George Brent, and Ethel Barrymore. It is based on Ethel Lena White's novel Some Must Watch. Set in early 20th century New England, the film follows a mute servant, Helen Maguire, who works in a large, eerie mansion. A serial killer is on the loose, targeting women with disabilities. As the killer closes in on Helen, she must find a way to survive without being able to call for help. The Spiral Staircase is a masterclass in suspense, with Siodmak's direction creating a sense of dread that builds throughout the film. The film's use of shadows, tight spaces, and silence contribute to its unsettling atmosphere. The film's portrayal of a mute heroine in peril influenced later horror films, particularly in the slasher genre. Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, 1948. Directed by Charles Barton, this horror comedy film stars the comedic duo Bud Abbott and Lou Costello alongside horror icons Bela Lugosi, Lon Chaney Jr., and Glenn Strange. The film follows the bumbling duo as they encounter Count Dracula, Lugosi, the Wolf Man, Chaney Jr., and Frankenstein's monster, Strange, in a series of comedic yet spooky escapades. As they try to escape from the monsters, they inadvertently become involved in a plot to revive Frankenstein's monster. While Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein is primarily a comedy, it remains one of the most beloved horror films of the 1940s. The film's mix of humor and genuine scares helped rejuvenate Universal's monster franchise and introduced the classic monsters to a new generation. This was the final time Bela Lugosi played Count Dracula on screen, solidifying his association with the role. The Queen of Spades, 1949. Directed by Thorold Dickinson, this British supernatural thriller is based on the novella by Alexander Pushkin. It stars Anton Walbrook and Edith Evans. The film is set in 19th-century St. Petersburg, where an army officer becomes obsessed with learning the secret to winning at cards. He discovers that an elderly countess possesses this secret, and his obsession leads him down a path of madness and supernatural retribution. The Queen of Spades is a haunting tale of greed and the supernatural, with strong performances and a chilling atmosphere. It is considered one of the best British horror films of the era, though it remains less known than other international horror classics. The film's striking use of black and white cinematography enhances its eerie and ghostly mood, making it a visually memorable piece of horror cinema. The 1940s may not be the first decade that comes to mind when thinking about horror, but it produced some truly spine-chilling films that have stood the test of time. These movies laid the groundwork for many of the horror tropes we recognize today, offering a mix of psychological tension, supernatural elements, and groundbreaking special effects. Whether you're a horror aficionado or new to the genre, these films are essential viewing for anyone interested in the evolution of cinematic scares. Thank you for tuning into Hollywood Secrets. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into the fascinating world of classic cinema. See you in the next episode.